Okay, guys, Nicholas Rosenberg here, Punching Back Podcast. We're here in the downtown LA Arts District. Today we've got Fernando from the El Bordo podcast. Thanks a lot for coming on, my friend.
Thank you for the invite.
So just to start out, who is Fernando?
Well, I grew up in border town, Tijuana, San Diego. Literally, like daytime in school. Right after school, go back home to TJ. So, I mean, there's a lot of people like us in San Diego and Tijuana that grow up this way. So I think it's kind of I think it was a niche at some point, but now it's just. I mean, there's like 1.9 million people in Tijuana itself. So
Right.
now that community has grown, and I think that's why my podcast has been working, because a lot of people can relate now to my story.
But you're born in
I was born
San Diego?
here in Los Angeles. I was born here in LA.
So born in LA,
Yeah.
but your family moved
No,
to...
my family, well, my grandparents came from the south to Tijuana, and they settled there. They're one of the first families that are like in my block or my neighborhood. It's all of our grandparents from my generation are first people that came to Tijuana. Like my mom was born in Tijuana, and then from then on, like her brother, her sister, and me and all my generation of my sisters and cousins, we were born out here, because they had papers so they could cross. My mom would come out here to school, and she went back home and stuff. So we had family out here in LA. So when she was pregnant, she came out here, stayed out here, and she had me in what is it, the General Hospital out here?
Yeah, USC County. Yeah.
But we never really lived out here. Like I said, and it's very normal in in San Diego to live in TJ and work or go to school in San Diego, and just going back and forth every day. So yeah, literally like half of our lives is the daytime is in San Diego, and then once you get off, it's in TJ. Yeah.
Well, you see the culture from both sides, right?
Yeah.
You see the U.S. and you see
Like they said,
the Mexico side.
yeah, if I speak English, you probably would not know that I grew up out there, and if I speak Spanish, you probably would not know that I was born out here. So
Right.
I'm very local on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, you have the street credibility on both sides.
Yeah, all that also too. Yeah.
So tell me about growing up, your mom, your dad. You mentioned your grandmother.
Yeah. Well, my mom had me very young, like at 17 years old.
Okay.
Kind of but yeah, she came to school out here, and my dad, he didn't cross, so he stayed out there, and I think he had his papers for a little bit, but he didn't really come out here very much. He was always out there. At some point, he was a federal cop out there.
Oh.
And my mom worked out here. She always worked out here, and probably like sometimes even two jobs. Typical. Because there was a point where they get divorced, they separate. So I stayed with my mom and my two sisters. So I had that life of not really seeing her mom because she has like two jobs. Growing up with my grandma, and I'm the oldest of my cousins. Like all my cousins are girls. Like I have two sisters, and then I have 3 girl cousins, like 6 girl cousins. So, but I'm the oldest. So just growing up, and I had my uncle. He was 9 years older than me, so he was kind of like a brother. He was my mom's younger brother, and my aunt. They're also 3. We're pretty small family. Yeah.
Would you say you were the man of the house or more like your uncle?
Well, at first, we had one man in every generation. First, it was my grandpa, and then he passed, and then it was my uncle, and he recently passed like 2 or 3 years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and now it was me from like the older, but now I have like nephews. Like my sister had a little kid, and my other cousin had another boy. So now there's a little bit more men. But for the same reason that it was all girls in the house, that's why I always were out there in the streets, just because I always wanted to have like brothers and have that that camaraderie of like playing rough and stuff like that. And at home I was always like the protector. I was always taking care of my sister, like walking them to school and everything. But that's why I was very much out there too, like in the neighborhood or just fucking around in the streets, because I found that in that other brotherhood that I kind of wanted at home. I found it when my home was in the streets. Yeah.
The male energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: which high school did you go to?
I went to Castle Park Middle and High School, right there in Chula Vista.
So what were you? I know Chula Vista. It's right on the border there. So what were you like in high school? What would your classmates say about you?
Well, that I think I'm the same. If you look at me, that most of the people that they see me today, I keep in touch with some of them. Like even if if I haven't spoken to them in years and they message me, I'm like, oh shit, that's so and so. You know, I even got a yearbook from high school and stuff just because I like to remember people. And and they say the same. They're like, hey, wait, you look the same. You know, you're just the same as before. I was a graffiti writer, but I was also like we call here they call them tag bangers, which is like graffiti writers that also like fight for their neighborhood or their crew or whatever. So that was the thing out there in TJ, and I was one of those. And it's funny because in school, like in Chula Vista, San Isidro, and all those places, you like there's a whole crew of kids that live in TJ. And
Right.
you kind of know because they ride the bus, or you can either see them in the mornings in the border making line, you know. So everybody knows each other, like that little group. So I was one of those, you know. It was a group of us that live out there, and we all knew each other from bus rides because we cross the border like at 6 in the morning, and
Right.
then get on the trolley that's right there when you cross. Get off, and depends where you're going, Palm Avenue, H Street, Palmer Street, and then you ride the bus that goes to school. So like all that route, we know each other because we see each other every day before and after school. You know what I mean? So
Is there a slang term for that?
Tijuaneros or Tijuas. They're like,
Tijuaneros.
oh,
Okay.
es Tijuanero, él es de
Right,
Tijuas.
right.
So you know, they were the Tijuaneros, and it was all sorts of like, there were nerds, there were punks, there were like little cholo dudes. So it
spectrum.
was it was just the whole spectrum. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think I was always a creative, like a creator. I was always drawing, reading, and always with my headphones, always. And and I had advanced classes in ever since elementary, and so I was with very different kinds of people that I would not see in the streets. You know, like really smart people. Like, not to judge, but there was like some Filipinos, a lot of whites, and then or like the Mexicans that didn't really spoke to anybody. You know what I mean? But they were really smart. So I was in classes with them, and then right after class, I would go back to the streets
Okay.
and all that.
So you
All the
had
ignorant
that
shit.
kind of a duality.
Yeah, even
with
that,
that.
too. Yeah,
Okay.
just in Tijuana and the San Diego, and then and that the being in IB classes, and then just being out there in the street as well. Always kind of like looking at both worlds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your mom was working 2 jobs. Did your mom ever have to sit down, as we say? Did she ever do any time?
Oh no. When my grandma and her were really young, like back in '92 or '93, I must have been like 2 or 3 years old. I was born in '89. They did get in some trouble. My grandma was involved in some stuff, and it's a weird case. It boils down to they were bringing. Can we say they were bringing heroin?
Yeah. Say what you want.
Okay,
The
yeah.
statute of limitations from 1992 is way past.
Yeah, so they were bringing my grandma, I think, was bringing heroin, something like that. That's the story. The thing is, something happened that when they got caught, what they were bringing, it was like 90% cut and only
Oh.
like 10% drugs. So they couldn't get charged of bringing a lot. You know, they eventually it was a little bit. You know, so
Started as a kilo, but it ended up with
ended
an
up
ounce.
a few grams.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. They eventually got out like in 3 months or something like that from the MCC, and then after that, my mom like my mom's always been a straight arrow. You know what I mean? She does everything right, like fuck it, stop signs, everything. You know, taxes, everything. My grandma was the more out there. You know what I mean? And then from once that happened, my mom just went back to being straight till this day. You know, that's why she always had even up to 3 jobs sometimes and stuff like that. And my grandma, she chilled after that too. She got a job. She worked at the casino as a cook and stuff. But then I think her visa ended or something like that, so she went back to TJ and she stayed out there. And at this point, my mom and my aunt and my uncle, they're old enough to work, so they support her. You know what I mean? So she didn't really need her work after that. And but yeah, my mom was always trying to move out here to San Diego, like first like staying with like sharing apartments with with her coworkers and stuff like that, and we stayed there like in the living room or stuff like that, and then eventually building up her credit because you know how out here is like to get approved for like a Section 8 is 2 or 3 years. So we waited for that. And then after that, she needed to build her credit for a good apartment. Then we got that. And then she needed to build her credit for the first home. And, so she did all that, Now she owns her own house.
Awesome.
She's been owning it for like 14 years almost right now. So yeah, but my grandma was always out there. Like that was grandma's house, so everybody went out there. Now my mom's house is becoming grandma's house because now everybody can cross and everybody goes out here and stuff. But yeah, everybody's going back to grandma's house. Like even me, like I didn't like to spend time out here. Like as soon as I got off of school, I would go straight to TJ. That's where my childhood friends are. That's where my, my first girl,
That's
my
where your
first,
family
yeah,
is.
that's where home. So so yeah, that was kind of the dynamic, just my mom didn't really see her much because she was always working, but she was
Mm-hmm.
we always had everything. I grew up with not maybe rich or abundant, but I had I would, I don't know, Christmas I would get the PlayStation, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing all right, and in TJ, just growing up there and being the kid from the block that's from San Diego or that family works out there. We get the nice Capri Suns and all the nice food in our fridges and stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Okay.
so yeah, just having that and yeah, I grew up being that. Even out there, like I would go to my friends' parties and like their I don't know if it was a girl from their school that was birthday or whatever. Nobody knew me. They knew all my friends, but nobody knew me because I didn't go to school out there. So like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, who's this? Oh no, he's from the block, but
Right.
he goes to school in San Diego, whatever this that. So yeah, it was always that dynamic of feeling a little bit, oh, who's him? Or oh, he's
A
from
little
here.
out of
Yeah,
place.
not out of place, but just yeah, a little bit different, maybe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
Okay, so you mentioned tag banging. What was your tag? What did
Kest,
you
Kest,
Kest?
Kest,
Okay, Kest.
Kest. Yeah.
And did you were a street artist? What was your
Yeah, I mostly
involvement?
I like doing what they call pieces or murals and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I also did tags, obviously, and all know that. But my main thing was doing like big walls and having more creative and. Yeah, so my crew was NGB, which is new generation of bandos or bangers or bombers, which is the same as
Mm-hmm.
taggers. And yeah, I mean, we had all kinds. We had like the fight. I mean, we all got in fights, but you have the guys that
Mm-hmm.
were more fighting and not really tagging, just straight
Right.
fighting. And then you had us more of a creative thing, and yeah, and I think I want to say I was good for being 14, 15 years old because I would
Mm-hmm.
start painting with older guys like 18, 20-ish. They were
Right.
doing big walls, big murals, and they took me under their wing and they started teaching me how to paint, like the HEM, Hecho en Mexico crew, which is like one of the oldest
Okay.
crew in Tijuana. Yeah, yeah. They kind of took me under the wing and yeah, from then on we went off. To this day, a lot of them are my friends. Mode came out of there and Chente, Hecho, Chex. Yeah, many great artists from Tijuana that are now legends. If you ask
Okay.
people around there, yeah, they talk about them as legends.
So what's the craziest thing you ever saw bombing or painting out there?
Well, out there, maybe it's popular out here now, but in Tijuana, something that's very special out there is what they call the Trepes, which is getting on top of the building and like basically hanging from the
Mm-hmm.
side of the building. And I mean, you would see it back in the early 2000s and stuff, like middle of the building tags, just list of names of tags and then
Mm-hmm.
one under the other, and then when you get to do it, it's like you had this body thing like from construction and stuff like that,
Like a
what they use, yeah, the
harness?
harness and stuff, and we were using those.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it was just one guy holding you from your leg, the other guy holding you from your hand, and you just
Mm.
go all the way down, and they're carrying you like this,
Right,
and you're
right.
riding the list. So we had people that fell and die,
Mm.
with just falling and breaking like ribs and there's a lot of that, especially because a lot of people get up there and they're high as fuck. You know what I
Right.
mean? So they're not being careful and stuff. So um, there's a guy that tagged the building in the border. When
Mm-hmm.
you're making line, that,
Oh,
that building that's there,
okay.
yeah, Sueño from HEM, rest in peace. He's a big
Mm-hmm.
legend for that. It came out in the news and everything. And back then when the building was brown, I don't know if you remember, there's a news article about it's him tagging
Hmm.
Sueño HEM
Okay.
right on that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
We
that's
we
yeah.
have someone here called Chaka
Yeah, yeah, no,
who could
yeah,
get
yeah, I
away
know
with
him.
that,
Yeah,
right?
I think, yeah, that would be. I mean, HEM is from his kind of generation, so
Okay.
that's the kind
Yeah.
of they're legendary like that out there. And so yeah, we had all kinds of crazy stuff. There was a book that came out. It's called Las Cochinadas de Tijuana, which is like Tijuana's messiness. I think it would
Okay.
translate to, because the building it looks messy. It doesn't look nice. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
a graffiti. Like out here, you do billboards that they match the Spider-Man on the billboard stuff like that. But
Right.
those tags, they kind of look nasty, but it's very
Mm-hmm.
TJ ish. So this book that Rescue and Addict, I think they were from TKO. They come up with this book back in like 2006, and I helped them. I'm even on the there's a picture of me and I even took him, me and Payne from HM. He was driving him around taking pictures of this book, whatever, and it became legendary now. That book is called Las Cochinas de Tijuana. So for people that's interested on that, yeah, you could go check it out.
So during that period, what was hip hop for you? Was that a part of your life
Yeah,
growing
always,
up?
always. My uncle put me on Dr. Dre, Cypress Hill, all that from a very, very early age. Like I said, he was 9 years older than me, so that was kind of like my older brothers, you know. So yeah, when he started driving his own cars and shit, he was back then in the '90s. You remember people either they had a system, sound system, and rims. You know,
Right.
that's all you needed in your car. So he was one of those. You know, he was always cleaning his car and you know the rims and the sound system, fixing it and all that. So he was always bumping music outside our house, and his friends would come over and they would kick it there and shit. So I was always paying attention to the music. I was always drawn to like the hip hop world, like the whole West Coast thing. To be honest, I mean, I really like some New York shit and stuff, but I really mess with like
So
the low
Tupac,
riding.
not Biggie.
Yeah, Tupac
Okay.
all day. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How about Chicano rap? What's going on with
That
that
came in
scene?
later after like Cypress Hill and stuff like that, and then I mean in San Diego, I think we have the best Chicano rappers, which is Mr. Shadow and Mr. Little One, and I mean some would even say Little Rob. You know what I mean? And they mentioned Night Out. We got people like GPA, John Sick, the whole low profile thing, the Khalifa Thugs, you know, Mr. Sancho and them. So I think the movement on Chicano was really big in San Diego, and I was really a big fan of Mr. Shadow. I mean, I got to have him on my podcast. I got to have Mr. Little One, and from out here, from LA, I really fuck with Conejo. I think he's one of my top five. Psycho Realm, I don't put him in Chicano rap, but you know, they're there. You know, like Cypress Hill, and but yeah, just always bumping. They had Mr. Shadow, Little Rob, like I said, Khalifa Thugs, and all that, because it was like it wasn't really the same Mexican as like a TJ Mexican,
Right, right.
but they were speaking Spanish and they were Mexican. You know, that's all we had basically. So, and they're really good. They're really good rappers. If you look at it like lyrically, like a hip hop, like Mr. Shadow, like his first hit, he doesn't even curse. You know what I mean? It's just bars and bars and a good beat. And Mr. Little One, also, you know, one of the greatest lyricists, I would say. And that's how it came about, you know, and just listening to Mexicans and like I said, I'm really a West Coast fan, so just Dr. Ray and all this, but eventually you see or you hear them and you hear Eazy-E mentioning Mexicans or fucking with like Brown Side and stuff like that. So you're like, oh fuck yeah, you know, they fuck with us, you know what I mean? And then eventually the whole Chicano rap thing being big in San Diego, lowrider shows at the Qualcomm, the Chargers were big back then. It was a whole movement of Chicano thing back then. So I mean, like I said, it was kind of different because at school you had like the neighborhood there where I went to school. It was Otay, you know, that was their
Oh,
neighborhood.
Otay, yeah.
Yeah, Otay. But I was from TJ and I would hang out with the Tijuaneros and the TJ kids. So I mean, I would fuck with them. You know, we would smoke weed sometimes and stuff like that. But you kind of see the difference, the regional difference. You know, to say it like that, to put it in words, how they were like Mexican Americans, and even though I'm Mexican American, I kind of grew up more on the Mexican side. So eventually we started having rap groups out there too in Tijuana, which like KDC, which meant Cartel de las Calles, and
Okay.
they were like me, like in the same community. They would cross to work in San Diego, and then but they lived in TJ, so they would show that in their raps and stuff. So, and yeah, I mean after that, Cartel de las Calles was big because we had all the TJ people had somebody. Oh fuck yeah, you know, and you know. But yeah, big shout out to all the Chicano rappers from everywhere. Yeah.
So would you say that you run Paisa? How
Yeah,
would
I
you
run Paisa.
describe
Yeah, I run
yourself?
Paisa. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I had some questions when I before I got to jail. I already knew because you have all these friends that know, and you have people in the system, and even out there where we used to hang out at my friend's house. He rented apartments on his second floor, and one time these deported dudes came. They got deported. They did their time and out here in like the state prison, and they got deported and they rented those apartments. And I became really good friends with them, especially because I spoke English, and I was kind of like and Toker from Florencia, I think he was from the Tokers, something like that, and his friend Malo was from fuck, I can't remember where Malo was from, But Toker was one of the, those like the typical really smart guy from jail. He would beat me in chess in like 3 moves. You know what I mean? And he,
Okay.
he read a lot, and he actually thought he was a lifer, but eventually some laws changed, and he ended up doing like with 10 years, and they let him out. So
This
he
was in the States.
yeah, he was out here. He did time out here in Pelican Bay, Corcoran. What's the other one?
The shoe. He was in the
Calipatria.
shoe.
Yeah, he was in all, like, he called them gladiator schools. I think that's what he told me, because we would talk a lot.
Yeah, that Corcoran.
Yeah,
is what they
Corcoran and all that.
call
Yeah,
gladiator.
he told me a lot of stories from that, and he actually told me, he's like, I only got my face tatted because I was doing live. He's like, if I would have known I was gonna go out, I wouldn't
Right.
like done my whole thing. But yeah, I just fucked with him because he was really smart, man. He was really book smart. He, like, you could tell he didn't waste his time in there. And so you kind of meet these people on the road, and you kind of know, like, if I ever get to jail, I already know that I'm not a homie. I'm a paisa. So yeah, when I got to MCC when I was 19, yeah, they asked you that. They actually had like a little ride or something that they were dividing them. So once they you get to the fourth floor, and then when they take you to the seventh or eighth floor, whatever, they're like, hey, what are you, paisa or sureño?
So MCC, this is in San Diego.
Yeah, then San Diego one. Yeah,
This is federal.
yeah, that's the
Okay.
Metropolitan Correctional.
So
Yeah.
you did some federal time.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Was that drug related?
alien smuggling.
Oh,
Yeah.
coyote.
Yeah. But I didn't get charged for that because I was walking them through. So they were just following me. So at the end of the day, it was just aiding and abetting or abetting.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so I ended up, my original charge, I was sentenced for like 60 days. Even my probation was like, bro, if this hadn't happened in the border, you wouldn't even be doing time. And then what got me more mixed, were in the mix, was the 3-year probation, because I kept violating and all this stuff. So I ended up going back for like 4 months, and then some month, like another 4 months in the halfway house, and then 2 months in another halfway house. So I was kind of all over, and then eventually I settled, and 3 years ended, and I've been clean ever since.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I got there really young, man. When I was 19, and then I looked really young too. So I was always very very out there in the streets. So I knew a lot of people from a very young age. So when you get to jail, and it's like, oh, I knew somebody from outside. So
Right.
so you kind of feel like, I mean, you
They
kind of feel
had your back.
yeah, a little bit more, and then talks happen, and oh, they mention somebody. Oh yeah, I know him too, and that's when, because in there, like, everybody says they're so and so outside, or they do this and that, but the real ones eventually in that small talk, and hey, so and so, he's married to so, and then if you know those kinds of things, that's when you're like, okay, that's when they'll let you in those conversations.
Because you have the trust.
Yeah, and because I do know the people that they're talking about. So eventually, like, I always describe it kind of like I don't know if you know the movie Slumdog Millionaire, that is this movie
Yeah,
with this
yeah.
kid that knows all the answers just because the
Is
shit
it
he went through.
India or
Yeah, is that
Bangladesh?
yeah, something like that. That he knows the answers to the game just because of the shit he went through.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same for me. Like, I know all these people not because I was looking to know them. It's just part of my life, part of what I was doing. And then
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting to this, like I said, like those talks where I know somebody, and oh shit, so they let me in the talks, and now I know more people because of the trust, and it's been like that till this day. That's kind of it
Now,
works.
you also have a strong relationship with the world of corridos.
Yeah, with after two friends got killed in 2015,
Mhm.
I kind of started getting into, like, looking for a group to make them a corrido,
Okay.
to have a
Oh,
corrido.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And at that point, I was selling weed in TJ, and a lot of my clients were musicians, because there's a really big music community in TJ, and so I would sell weed to a lot of them. So eventually, when that happened, I started getting like I would invite them, hey, you want to smoke, and just to have like, start getting into, like, what does it take to do this and that. I even wrote a little bit on one of them, and eventually I ended up meeting Codiciado, which is really big right now. Well, he wasn't big when I met him, and we just kicked it off from the first day we met. Like, we fucked with each other. He was really cool. I was really cool, and then I basically was his wingman on everything, like, just on his
So you
uprising,
toured with him.
everything. Like, even
Okay.
before touring, just dealing with the labels and the meetings. Like, he didn't speak English, so when we came to meetings out here, he didn't trust the translator that was being given by the same label that they were wanting to sign him to. So he's like, hey, I have my friend that he speaks good English and he can translate for me in a way that I can understand. So I would sit there in those meetings, and so I really got the ins and outs of the industry that way, just by being there and being his wingman and all kinds of sense, just even in the psychological sense of like seeing somebody not having anything because he comes from a little bit more poor neighborhood than me. So like I said, I'm kind of used to having toys and like good stuff and but just seeing him not having anything and then just getting like all this money and fame and turning him
like that.
yeah, and then turning him into like actually like changing him a little bit and in a bad way, you know what I mean? So I kind of saw all that, just how that thing is. And with him, I got more involved in the industry. I make good connects. I know a lot of people from big labels that are here right now, like from Rancho Emilia to Del Records to um, what's this other one, Afinarte, like just everybody. I know people from behind the scenes that in the concerts and shows. I've toured with them, like I said, here and in Mexico, and that's kind of how I got around with people, and eventually that's how I came up with the idea of having a podcast. I mean, I always kind of wanted the idea because I was always watching content on YouTube since I was on probation since back in
Right.
2012.
Okay.
And but podcasts weren't big in Mexico till after COVID. So once people started fucking with podcasts after the COVID, I was like, I think it's time. I think now I can do it. So after I did it, I started getting help from all these people that are like, hey, well, I see you doing it. Like whenever you want me on,
Your podcast is El Bordo.
El Bordo, yeah.
That means the border.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. It sounds like it grows out of your life experience
Yeah.
going back and forth.
Yeah, well, it depends where you ask. I mean, if you're local from Tijuana and you ask where's El Bordo, they're gonna be like, oh, it's over in El Canal, right next to the border, like all these neighborhoods next to the fence, from Playas to my house, from Los Altos Soler, La Alemán, Castillo, Zona Norte, up to Otay, where the airport is. The airport's right next to the fence. All those colonias, all those neighborhoods, that's what they call. That would be like El Bordo. And but if you just from Mexico, you ask where's the border, it could be from Tijuana to Tamaulipas. You know what I mean? It's the whole border. And but we locally call it El Bordo because that's where my neighborhood say like even my neighborhood and the ones around it. Um, but now it became a thing. Now that I've been making it a thing because a lot of people relate to it, just because they see me and they're like, oh, he calls it a bordo because he comes and goes like me. He goes to school out there, but he has that life. And it's a big community, like I said. It's a lot of us that do that or that relate to that. Even people that don't cross, they relate because their cousin does or their friend does, or we all have somebody. And I think that's why it's been working out.
So Conejo's been on your show,
Yeah,
and you've had a lot of different people on the show.
yeah. Conejo, yeah, it's one of the most views too. One of the most views episodes too.
But you've also been on a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, they've invited me, like yourself, to other podcasts like Danny Jones from Concrete out there in Florida. I've been in with Mark Gagnon, Cam Gagnon. It's called his podcast out there in New York. He's in Andrew Schultz podcast, Flagrant. I've been to the Johnny Mitchell podcast. I've done some stuff with Johnny Mitchell as well. Even lately, American Cholo, Indicted TV, and all these other more local podcasters. That I mean, I'm very grateful that they invite me over. Like I said, I've always been a fan of the content, especially LA that has a lot of content. So just being looked at as like a good guest for them is to me, I'm grateful. I'm cool with that. Yeah.
We've been on a lot of the same shows, but I want to go back to the Johnny Mitchell. Shout out to Johnny Mitchell and the Connect.
Shout out to Johnny Mitchell.
Now you actually took him as a güero into TJ, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, he wanted to know where I came from, and shout outs to him for that, for actually taking the time and using his platform to actually have somebody like real. Like I know people might talk shit sometimes on the internet, like who's this guy or whatever. But if you're really from TJ and you ask, you're gonna know. You know what I mean? So he actually took the time to come. He invited me to be the guest, to drive him around and show him where I live and some of these neighborhoods. And with El Calderon, which he has the other side of the coin. He was a cop,
Yeah.
So, and he's a really good friend. Shout out to him too. He's been in Joe Rogan. He's done like twice, So
he was the one that was looking for Conejo.
yeah. I think he eventually arrested him. I think something like that. Yeah.
Came full circle.
Yeah. That's so crazy what we're doing right now, and just what it was back, 15 years ago. And yeah, because at the same time I mean, he wasn't looking for me directly, but he was looking for kids like us or people like me. I was
Mm-hmm.
whenever his convoy was around, he drove in a big convoy. The guy he worked with, Teniente Coronel Leizaola, he was really that guy, that was cracking down on everything. No
Mm-hmm.
mercy. He would slap motherfuckers around everything. So whenever his convoy was around, like patrolling, everybody knew because everybody would call each other, hey,
Mm-hmm.
they're patrolling. So we would hide. We would go into the houses and we would see from like the second floor or stuff like that, and they would drive around. And I always say my respect to the Coronel Leizaola because I saw him. He was in the very first truck, right in the front. He
Mm-hmm.
was in the passenger seat with a
Right.
map. Back then, we didn't really there wasn't GPS, so they drove with maps, and
Mm.
they would see like the alleys in the neighborhoods and stuff. So I saw him, like, you know what I mean. I saw him in action, kind of in a way. He was in the first truck, right in the front. Just fucking. They would pull you over if you had weed. Where you get it? No, some kid sold it to me out there. Oh, show me where, and they would pull up the map. Show me where, whatever. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It was rough. Yeah, it was big. So Ed Calderon was one of those. You know what I
But
mean?
you were on his show, right? Or he was on your show?
Ed Calderon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had him on my show.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But we met in person after I took Johnny to
Mm-hmm.
Tijuana. I took him to Los Altos. I took him to Zona Norte. I took him to one of the oldest trap places in Zona Norte.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he met the guys. He didn't really know what to expect because I even heard him ask Ed, like, hey, you think it's worth to record here or something? And Ed was like, bro, not even I could get you access here. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You should really take advantage. And he did. They closed the trap for me because they're my childhood friends. I know them for forever. So
Right.
they closed the whole trap thing for me, and they took us in there. They show him what they
Mm.
do, how they do it. My friend showed him where he got shot, and he explained him how they cross people with drones. Sometimes they don't even have people fucking showing them the way. You just follow them with drones and just all kinds of information that wouldn't have been available to him in any way, you know what I mean? And I kind of show him that, and yeah, man. I mean, shout out to him again. If you haven't watched it, it's called Murder City,
Mm-hmm.
and not and Johnny Mitchell's channel.
So, Fernando, do you see yourself as a journalist? Because you're bringing people in and showing them what's really going on
Yeah, I've had
in
this talk.
TJ.
I have journalist friends. I have good reporter friends and stuff, and I see what they do, and it's not really what I do. That's why I don't consider
Mm-hmm.
myself that. But in a way, like I said, at the end of the day, my point is to make movies and make stories. I write stories. I don't really write stories that are gonna report on something. I just write stories to
Mm-hmm.
entertain. I want to make movies to entertain. Like, I don't want you to see some of my stuff and be like, oh, or I don't want you to look at me as a news source. You know what I mean?
Right.
More as a
Periodista.
yeah, more as a entertainment. You know what I mean? But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, the stories I'm telling, they're real, and some of those stories have never been told, so they might be newsworthy. Some of them, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why um I've been getting asked if I consider myself a journalist and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, like I said, I don't think I do because I see what other people do, and like I had Katarina Schultz, Schulk, I think Schulk is her name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was in Culiacan in the middle of the war, like reporting with like the military and stuff like that. To me, that's reporting. You know what I mean? To
Mm-hmm.
me, their agenda is to report and for people to know what's going on. To me, I don't care if you know what's going on. You know what I mean? I just want to tell you a story like the same when you sit down and turn on Netflix and you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and watch Goodfellas. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
fiction.
that's kind of the thing. But the thing is, my stories are real. Like, I like the realness, I like the rawness. So that's why sometimes it makes it newsworthy, and that's why sometimes it could be considered, a journalism or periodismo.
Well, you have an episode that's doing very well, 140K views at this time, where you talk to Gordo
Gordo
while
Villarreal,
he's on the
shout outs
inside.
to Gordo
So tell
Villarreal.
me, because not everyone can follow the Spanish. Tell
Yeah.
me what was that like?
Well, you see, in like I always say, if you grow up, let's say South Central,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not into the gang banging, gangbangers, big gangbangers, from the smallest of it because they're around you. They're somebody's cousin, they're your girl's brother. It's always people near. It's the same in Tijuana for like the cartel people.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common to like some of these guys I knew them before they were who they are now. Or some of them I know them because they're um, um, brother-in-law to whoever or the suegro of whoever.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, these people are I'm close to them. Plus, I was out there in the streets as well, so I kind of come from them, and they trust me because of that. Because they know I come from the same thing. So I've been knowing Gordo for at least 4 years now. And I had a blog where I wrote fiction stories, but they were like cartelist stories, but they were fiction. And a lot of people read them, especially in that world, and they fucked with me because they fucked with the way I wrote. And he was one of them. Gordo was like, "Hey, I'm trying to write my book about like my life and stories, and I like the way you write because you don't miss the lingo that we use, and I like that." So
Auténtico.
yeah, and yeah, so I helped him write his book, which he has on Amazon. It's called Bandidos Reales or Real Bandits. It's in Spanish and English, and yeah, I mean he's been a friend for a while, just because of helping him like that, and we became really close. And
But see, that's kind of journalistic, helping somebody write their life story, right?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And at the same, but to me, I relate journalism with like news reporters. That's why kind of I don't know that I don't feel that the name sits right, but that's when I know that it kind of the circles kind of like what do you call it? It becomes a shape where they cross,
They overlap.
they overlap.
Boundaries get blurred.
Yeah, exactly. So that's in some of the places where it overlaps one thing with the other.
So
And
what's Gordo serving?
he's doing conspiracy. I think he had murder and uh I don't know how many kilos of coke and stuff like that.
But I mean, is he doing a life term?
No,
or
he's
he's got an outdate.
I think his sentence is 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there since 2011 or 2010, 2010ish, 11, and he's just been, when laws go through and you get a few years taken off, and he's been doing all that. He's been drug programs and all that. So, I mean, if he's lucky, he'll be out in at least 4 years, 4 or 5 years. If not, gonna have to wait to see what goes on and everything. And but yeah, I mean, like I know a lot of people like him, and maybe a little bit more low level because he was literally on the most wanted posters.
Right.
And like there's some people all in the first generation of that particular cartel that I'm telling their stories about. I'm narrating like my talks with them. Like they tell me a certain story about something that happened, like a famous murder or something that they know what happened. So he'll tell me a story and I'll narrate it in my channel with like effects, like like tire
Yeah,
screeching,
like
gunshot
I've
stuff.
seen, it's not talking heads. You're putting up images.
Yeah. Like I'll do the narrating thing, like I like kind of like an audiobook. And I wanted to promote those stories because they're like cartel stories. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a talk with Gordo because he's my friend. So I kind of sometimes, like when you meet like when you get close to like a really famous person, you kind of forget they're famous in a way. So that's kind of what happened with Gordo. Like I just been fucking with him so much that I kind of forgot that he could be a good guest. You know what I mean? So
Right.
when I wanted to promote the Platicando con el Señor Siete podcast, which is my audio thing, I was like, oh, I need some cartel audience, so I'm gonna get Gordo, because I know he like as soon as I told him, hey, I can grabar un podcast, he was like, yeah, just tell me how do we do it, and I'm down. So we did it, 15-minute calls with the microphones and all that, and it became a success. Like it did very good, more than I expected, to be honest. And yeah, we'll probably have part two, and I might even I offered him like because he's very charismatic, so I told him like, hey, you might be able to have your own thing. You know what I mean? He talks a lot. He articulates. He speaks good English and Spanish because he went to school also in San Diego. He had the same life. He grew up in Tijuana, but he went to school.
Tijuanero.
I think he went to Mar Vista or something like that. So I think he might be able to hold his own thing, to be honest. And I'm glad that I showed the people, that I gave him the platform because now I give them another when they're doing time, especially a lot of these big bosses. I think some of them don't really know what to do when they get out because all they know what to do. They don't want to go back and stuff. So by me giving them like Gordo, kind of like another goal, like entertainment, like his book, his story and all that. I think it kind of gives them another thing to not to live for because they have their family and stuff like that, but it gives you a little hobby or something that keeps you more alive or your spirits.
Purpose.
At the same time, when he gets out, he might have something to do. He might be able to do his own thing, his podcast and all that. And so I kind of, give him that. You know what I mean? And for that same reason, like a lot of his compadres, other señores and stuff like that, will be like, "Hey, I like what you're doing I like how you're helping and stuff. So whatever you need,
Well, it's a world that not everyone can just walk into, right?
And I didn't walk into, I was just I grew up there
Right.
kind of in a way. So That's why they rather talk to me than Luis Chaparro, for instance. Shout out to Luis Chaparro, but he's a full-time reporter, and he gets good stories, but he doesn't have that. He's not from that world, so some people might not talk to people like him, but like though to me, they even like be like, "Hey, tell this story." They all want to tell me their story. They all want me to tell it, and it feels cool because they're like, I want you to tell my story. That's the thing they say. I want you to tell it. And so I mean, I don't know if because they like how I tell the story or they just fuck with me or whatever, but I mean,
Well, I think they trust you
yeah.
as giving voice
And
to
and
their
and like they
experience.
say, I keep it real. Like I don't if you got slapped around and I talk about it, you can't really get mad, dude, because you did get slapped around. You know what I mean? So just being true to like both parts, the very good and the very bad, I think they like that. That's what they compliment me on. They're like, I like that your stuff is real. Even some other channels, like there's a big channel right now, Okra and Leaks. That he
Okay.
talks about a lot of cartel stuff, and we talked on Instagram. He's like, yeah, I like what you're doing because you keep it real. And that same phrase, they use it to compliment me, and I'm like, fuck, that's what I'm looking for.
Now, have you ever felt in danger or you go up to a line that you can't cross?
Um, I just don't mention people that don't want to be mentioned, and if I don't know them, if I've just met them once or we don't have that, like all the people I mention is because I either asked them if I can mention them or I know I'm cool with me mentioning them. I don't go out exploring. They usually like I do live streaming every day, and I get a lot of questions about all these different people that I don't know, and I literally tell them like I don't know, wait, like don't think because I know a lot, I have a whole roster of people and their information. And even in some of the people that they ask me about, I do know, but I'm not gonna talk about because I don't have that communication with them that whether I know if it's good or not. One of my another good interview on my podcast is with Fausto Escamilla, is a guy that actually worked for Gordo Villarreal. He mentioned some dudes there where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna censor this name just because I know you're saying it, but it's on my platform, so you know what I mean. And he was like, yeah, I get it, I understand. So I had to blur like two
Sure,
names.
yeah.
That yeah. And I think people knew who he was talking about, but I bet the person was like, I'm glad they blurred because
Right.
you know what I mean. They don't want to be talked about. So, and I don't, like I said, I'm not a reporter that is willing to put information. I'm just, that's not my thing.
Well, also, like me, the cops watch our stuff, right?
Yeah. I bet. Yeah,
So
yeah.
there can be some boundaries, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like some of them they don't want to. There's some stuff they can't talk about because of statute of limitations type stuff, and I get it. And like I said, I'm not a reporter that I want to put stuff out there for people. I'm just trying to entertain. I grab the stories that they let me tell, which are very exciting, are very entertaining, and I do it for entertainment. I just try to. I'm not trying to like burn people or call
Right.
people out or anything, and I think they fuck with that. And if I don't do anything illegal. I haven't done anything illegal in a very long time. So I mean, if I'm pretty sure that they're gonna look if they look into me, if they see like these calls with Gordo, he's like, why do they know? What does he know? These people, they're gonna find out that it's just regular conversations. Hey, happy birthday, happy Merry Christmas, shit like that. Hey, how you doing? Did you watch the game? Did you watch the fight last night? We're not talking about hey, how many people did you, or you know what I mean? How many guys? That's not my
It's like
thing.
a human side,
Yeah,
the other
because
side.
that's how I met him. That's how I met a lot of them on very different circumstances. Not because I was dealing with them or stuff like that. Even though they're like, hey, whatever you need, I'm here, whatever. I've never really needed their help, and I hope it stays that way.
Right.
So I think that's why I keep it clean. I try to stay clean. I try to not get involved in anything. So I'm pretty aware that if they want to look into me, I'm gonna be okay. You know what I mean?
So I asked you if you see yourself as a journalist. Maybe you see yourself as a storyteller.
Storyteller is actually on my bio. Yeah,
Have you thought about working in film or?
that's one of my goals. Yeah,
Okay.
my writing and all that, and just building these audio stories with sound and everything is because I want you to look at it as a movie because eventually I want to get to make movies about either these people or just my stories. Like I have a lot of jail stories. I have a lot of just because of all the people I've known and I've grown around. Um, and yeah, and just kind of even play with it, like make it some fictional. Some of these guys could really be like movie what do you call it? Movie villains. You know, if you paint it like in a more cartoonish way, and you can paint them like, you know, like Gotham City type thing. You know what I mean? And all these
Okay.
villains. You know, so that's kind of where I want to take it. You know what I mean? And eventually, that's where I'm gonna take it. And these are just like my stepping stones to getting there.
Mhm.
And yeah,
What inspires you?
um, I just like um bringing to life my ideas. Like when even when I did graffiti, you know, I like watching the thing and then putting on a wall and fucking stare at it for like 15, smoke a joint and just watching it, not believing, or this weird feeling of bringing something from here to life.
Mhm.
And then you add the sauce that it's real, you add the sauce that it has action, you add the sauce that there's drama, there's love stories, there's all kinds of things, you know. I mean, I see the movies that go popular, it's stuff that I grew up on, you know what I mean? All these
Mhm.
Scarface, all these Goodfellas, all these, even the NWAs mixing the music with with the thing. It's the same thing out there, like the corridos with the cartel is very together, you know. So so I think I could bring that to a bigger, like a movie or something, and it's
Mhm.
gonna be in an entertaining way, you know, not to glorify, not to um, put down anybody, just tell it like it is in a good story. Whereas if you don't know if that it's a real story, you still be like, oh shit, that's a good movie. You know what I mean? That's kind of my goal.
What are some of your favorite films that you relate to?
To be honest, one of my favorite, I think my top one would be Forrest Gump.
Okay.
I love that movie. I
Mhm.
love that movie. I even if I'm like in a bad mood or something, if I watch it, it'll get me in a good mood. You know,
Mhm.
I love that movie so much. That Scent of a Woman with Al Pacino.
Mhm.
Um, just these lawyer movies, spy movies. I love spy movies.
Mhm.
I love all that stuff. Catch Me If You Can. Obviously Godfather. Obviously Goodfellas. Obviously Casino is one of the best.
Mhm.
Heat. You know, Heat has to be one of the best. Just yeah, I mean all that stuff. Yeah, that's kind of what I it's weird because people would expect like my first answer to be like Godfather stuff like that, but Forrest
Mhm.
Gump has to be. I think it has to be the best movie of all time, to be honest.
I got you. So there's been a lot of changes in the Mexican government. Now there's a new president, Sheinbaum, and is she going to continue the war on drugs? What are your thoughts?
Well, they don't have a war on drugs. They call it abrazos no balazos, which means
Mm-hmm.
hugs, not bullets. And I mean, she was very close to the president that started this, Lopez Obrador, and she's
Mm-hmm.
mentioning a lot of times that she's going to continue it the same way. So probably the same, you know, it's gonna be probably the same because now even out here, Trump is out here, and I think
Mm-hmm.
Trump and Obrador were presidents in the same timeline, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's not Obrador, but it's Claudia, which she has the same ideology. So we might be like back then, you know, back in a few years ago.
Well, I think they said that she, quote, cleaned up Mexico City, right? Violent crime is down 50%.
I mean, I wouldn't know because I don't live out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as Tijuana goes, they have a lot of stuff to do. They have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work to do,
Right.
especially amongst their government itself. You know, they need a
Right.
lot of cleanup in the government because, like I tell tourists, you know, you don't really have. You're not really in danger if you're out there with the cartels and stuff like that. Maybe a petty crime if you leave your bag in your car, you get your window broken, but that happens in downtown LA.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, it's more of you get pulled over that you might be in a little bit more, you know, $200 missing from your, you know, or whatever. That's really where the danger is, and that's I think that's really where the government needs to, and not only because they're bad elements, but they need to pay them more. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they need more better work conditions. That which is eventually is what brings them to doing, you know, illegal stuff. You know,
Right.
brings them to corruption. Yeah.
Have you been involved in voting, electoral politics in the
Well, I
U.S.?
was tripping out because I seen Negra she voted way, and I thought she was a felon, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought felons couldn't vote. But she was like, "No, you could vote." I think I saw her story. She said something like that. And but I haven't been voting for the longest because I've been living with this idea that felons can't vote.
Right. Well, as far as I understand, at some point you can vote, but you can't vote while you're incarcerated.
No, I mean that makes sense, but I
Yeah.
think it was just like you couldn't vote,
Mm-hmm.
like not owning a gun. You know, I thought it was the same
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
But I not, yeah, but these past elections, I see Negra. She uploaded a story. She's just talking about how she just voted and that we could vote and all that. So I'm gonna vote next year then, I guess. I'm gonna vote, I mean, I'm gonna vote whenever election is. Like,
So, what can we expect from Fernando in the future? What should we look for?
well, definitely more podcasting, a lot of podcasting because I'm getting different invites in the English podcast and in the Mexican podcast, like Pepe Garza and all these other places that I've been getting looked at and considered as being a guest. A lot of storytelling as well. I've gotten more stories now after Gordo, Villarreal, and after all these stories that I've been doing. Now I have all these people lining up just to wanting to tell me the story. So definitely a lot of that. Eventually, if I can bring that to video, not only audio, eventually do some video on it and like in a movie format, short movie format, stuff like that. Um, Maybe myself acting too in those movie formats.
Right?
But yeah, definitely a lot of that. Definitely a lot of podcasting and storytelling.
Okay. Anything else we need to know about you or El Bordo podcast?
Nothing. Follow us, support, like, share, subscribe. El Bordo MX everywhere at El Bordo MX. At Cool Media TV. Um, just stay tuned because we're doing some big stuff out here.
Okay. So, as we say, much love. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for the invite. Shout out to Prime, all Cool TV.
And guys, if you like the content, hit like, hit subscribe. We got a bunch more guests coming on. Nicholas Rosenberg, punching back.